Be aware that I have received a request to record this session. And anytime we are recording the session, uh, you have the option of cutting off your video feed. You should know that if you decide to participate verbally, that will also be on the video. And so, for the person who just arrived, we were just letting you know that this session is being recorded, and you have the option of turning off your video feed and your audio feed. Uh, with it being recorded, I will upload that video tonight after I cut off the first part for those of you who got caught with your video feed on and wanted to turn it off. So the actual recording that is uploaded this evening uh, will start right now. All right, you see on our announcements. Well, we will be getting into those announcements, and here are some of them that we'll be covering. After we cover those announcements, we'll be moving on to part two and what the expectations for part two. And yes, how we will be submitting our uh, quantitative data and the qualitative data and the suggested academic classroom assessments. And also, we'll be talking about those interventions. We'll get to all of that. And of course, I'm always pleased to stay after class, or you can meet with me during office hours or any other time. That's mutually convenient. So yes, I hope to get those part one papers back to you by tomorrow afternoon if you submitted them. Uh, Typically, I get that information back to you within about half a day. You want to make sure that you are have obtained or will soon be obtaining access to the self-help booklet for kids. Part two, and you remember this from the syllabus, part two requires that you take some interventions and some suggestions from various self-help books for kids. We'll give you a reminder of this near the end of the session. But there are various self-help books, and we have a link to where you can obtain them for free on the internet. That is in the description for part two. You'll see a link that will um, arrive you at a website where you can obtain a self-help book for kids for free. More on this a little bit later. Otherwise, you can purchase it if you think it would be helpful for a particular learner that you're working with. And we have some quizzes coming up and due. These will assist you on part two of your paper. And we have one more meeting after this one. We'll be gathering together on December 8th. If you would like me to look over your part two papers before that point, just send them to me and I'll look them over quickly, give you some general feedback. But that meeting on the 8th of December is geared toward um, us just fine tuning our part twos, bringing in our working drafts that come due on the weekend following the 8th, and we'll be looking them over, going to the breakout rooms, sharing them with our colleagues, and making sure that they are high quality products that you'll be submitting on that weekend. Well, actually, you've got a few more days beyond that if you wish, offering bonus points for getting it in by Sunday, because I've got to start my reading quickly, given that grades come due, I believe, on the 27th of December. Not a whole lot of time to read. Um, and really need them by the 15th of December. If for some reason they can't come in by that date, then we definitely need to meet on Zoom and figure out what to do about that. Just reminding you that everything you need to know about success on part two is on our Brightspace site, and you'll go down to the to where you click on descriptions of assignment parts, the cab MR, and select the link for part two. And we have exemplars there, some high achieving papers from previous semesters, while the requirements might differ from semester to semester just slightly. They're very good at giving you an idea of the structure of it and the details that are required, and just to sort of give you a better idea of what's contained in a quality part two. And part two, well, that involves actually engaging in the data collection that you talked about in part one. Okay, you on part one, you have your target behavior definition approved, and we say, wow, that is observable and measurable, and your recording procedure approved, and you actually engage in it in part two. On your part two submission, you'll actually be showing me a photograph or however else you connect it, attach it, or include it into your paper. The actual data collection forms, your tally marks, your notations regarding duration, the the partial interval recording or full interval recording or momentary time sampling recording sheets. And then you're going to place this data that you've collected, the quantitative data, into some visual form or pictorial form, a graph, a chart, something along that line, circle graph, line graph, so that the reader can quickly get an idea of what all these marks on that recording, that collection sheet, what they all, how it all comes together. And then, based upon the data you've collected, the quantitative numerical data, and also the qualitative data, just what else you know about this student, you're going to make some sense of the, the data you've collected. What does it mean? Uh, what can we imply? What do we know for certain? How do we interpret this data? What conclusions might we have arrived at? And based upon where the student is at that particular moment, you're going to devise a behavior objective. Where do we think this student can be a couple of weeks from now or a couple of months from now? We identify an objective, a short-term goal, and we state it in observable and measurable terms, just like the definition. And based upon your study of the learning modules, you will be applying certain interventions to your student. You don't actually have to engage in these interventions, differential reinforcement, task analysis. You don't need to actually do them, engage with them, but hypothetically, if you were to implement these interventions, how would you do so with your focus learner? Now, if you actually do intervene, I'm quite impressed and certainly acknowledge that. So, moving forward into part two, taking it in the different parts, we'll talk about each segment of the assignment, part two. Well, After you reintroduce me to your focus learner, just so I say, oh, yeah, I remember that focus learner from part one. And you also remind me of the definition and the recording procedure that you'll be using. Then you describe how you went about collecting the data. I mean, were you seated in the back of the room or were you actually recording the data while you were teaching? Did you do so digitally or were you using pencil and paper? Okay, you observe for a number of different uh, time spans. And how long were those time spans? Oh, well, 20 minutes one time, 45 minutes another time, only had 10 minutes another time, but you'll tell me how long were those intervals. And which marks were you using? I guess I'll see that on the forms that you attach to your paper, the original data collection forms. Or yes, and the different marks you use. And so right now, just so we know who's here this evening, if you'd please enter into the chat which recording procedure you will be using to collect data. Are you looking at short-lived behaviors that pop up and go away? Event recording, frequency recording. Wow, when this behavior happens, it lasts a while. Oh, duration recording, or gee, we could do kind of like a shortcut procedure for duration. We could use full interval recording. Well, sometimes it's quick and other times it lasts a long time. Oh, partial interval recording. Or maybe we look over at certain signals. Is the behavior happening at this moment? Momentary time sampling. Mhm. Looks like mostly frequency and duration, but we are seeing a few folks will be using latency recording, which is kind of a variation on duration or partial interval. All right, I will look forward to seeing those. Yes, if you're looking for data collection forms, you certainly can create your own, but you can also find them on the internet. uh, Pull them off of images.google.com or type in frequency recording data sheet in your URL bar and let the internet find those for you. Yes, and then after you've collected all that data, you are going to put it into, again, some graphic pictorial form. It could be a line graph like you see in the upper corner, but be sure and label those axes, the y-axis and the x-axis, so that we know exactly what those numbers represent. There's the a data recording sheet down there, and then at the bottom corner, that we have that data recording sheet, and then we put it into a graph or a chart, like that bar chart.
May I ask a question?
Please do.
Thank you. I was wondering if I could use a form that I use in my classroom. And if I can, I just wanted to ask because it also includes a portion where we would put the replacement behavior that we're looking to see. Can we do that, or no, you don't want to see that in the
Oh,
chart?
I would love to see real life examples. And additionally, there are two forms that you are required to fill out for part two. And one of them, you do identify the replacement behavior. So I guess I will be seeing it twice during your part two paper. Mhm. Yes, and then it's time to analyze the data. Okay, what can we determine from this, or at least perhaps imply, or have a pretty good guesstimate? I mean, we may have only been observing the behavior for 3 hours total, but can we get some sort of imagery as to what all this means? Did the data change from day to day, from subject matter to subject matter, from teacher to teacher? If so, why do we think that's the case? And we've only been collecting data on one student for this assignment, but as we look around the room, do we think that this behavior is very different in some behavioral dimension, one of the six, from the displays of that behavior in other kids? I mean, all kids show all behaviors, but it's when one of the students engages in that behavior to a more intensive level, one of the six dimensions, then we say, yeah, we need to support the student making better behavior decisions. All right. And so once you've analyzed the data and you know how often that behavior is happening per minute, per period, per hour, per day, per week, but now we're saying, okay, well, we know where the kid is situated presently. Where do we want that student to be a couple of weeks or a couple of months down the road? What do we think we can accomplish with our interventions? Can we help this student improve to a more advanced point? And so we take our best guess based upon the student we know, the interventions we'll be using, the supports we have. What do we think we can accomplish with this student? And so we write that behavioral objective in observable and measurable terms. And there are four conditions that need to be met when writing a behavioral objective. We need to identify the person involved, the actor, and we need to uh, uh, objectively, uh, observable and measurable behavior needs to be stated. And to what degree do we think the student can accomplish this behavior? And any conditions involved here, the setting, the place, the time, the subject, the circumstances. So we've got an example here of during the morning meeting, Tyrese will remain in his seat. We've got to define it in observable and measurable terms. We mean a buttocks in contact with the horizontal plane of the chair, and for 70% of the total time that we observe, or the total time during the morning meeting. Chances are he's doing it, let's say, 50% of the time right now. And we say, now that we've got these new ideas and we're going to implement them consistently and persistently, we think we can get him to 70% of the total time. And yes, it's the ABCDs. When you're writing a behavioral objective, the actor for the A, the B, behavior, the conditions under which we will be observing the behavior, and what do we think this kid can accomplish at that future point? By the way, this PowerPoint will also be up uh, this evening or early to, well, let's see, mid morning tomorrow, along with the video, the recording. Okay, more of the same. And now you can think to yourself, or if you wish, you can enter it into the chat as we identify the different components of the behavioral objective. So we have Kong Ting here, and he's been eloping, not putting the ladder up to the window and saying, "Come with me, dear." Elopements in the educational settings refer to leaving an area. And so, but what area? Oh, exiting past the classroom door before obtaining permission to do so. Okay, you can read it as well as I. And so you want to identify the actor, the behavior, the circumstances or the condition, and the degree of change. And we see in the chat some folks are spot on when it comes to identifying the different parts. Nicely done, folks. How about Esmeralda here? You're thinking to yourself, okay, what's the behavior? Who's showing it, the actor? What are the circumstances under which we will be observing it? And where do we think this kid can be a couple of weeks from now, a couple of months from now? Everybody's nailing the behavior. Folks who have posted have identified the actor. Mhm. All right, well done again. You can check if you've been thinking to yourself, you can check it against the answers in the chat. All right, we'll be going into breakout rooms only for 5, maybe 10 minutes. And with a couple of other people, you'll want to introduce yourself. And then you'll be working on these 3 behavioral objectives. So if you could take a screenshot now, take a photo with your phone so that at least one person, but hopefully all of you, have this available to you when you're in the breakout room. Please take that photo or a screenshot in the next 10 seconds. If you haven't taken a screenshot before and you have a Mac computer, it is Shift Command 3. Those 3 keys at the same time, Shift Command 3. All right, so please be patient while I arm wrestle in cyberspace with technology and get you folks into breakout rooms. We'll see you in about 10 minutes, he said confidently. All right, those folks who are in meeting or breakout room number one, would you please report to us on the first of the behavioral objectives? Any representative from breakout room number
Our
one?
group can go. We
Well,
just got
thank
kind
you.
of
And
conflicted at the end though.
oh, yeah.
For Leslie, for the first one, actor is Leslie, behavior is complying with teacher direction. At first we were kind of like saying it would not be non-compliant because that kind of gives it like a negative connotation. So I guess complying with teacher direction. And then the condition uh we said during each repeat of the prompt, but is it during each repeat of the prompt or is it school day, but kind of teacher
Uh-huh.
direction tells you it's a school day?
Ah, good, astute thinking there. But the intention here was talking about a school day,
Okay.
and the each repeat was referring, giving the student another chance to comply within 10
Mm,
seconds. So we'd have to have a yes mark and a no mark when we're recording. And every time we give a direction, if the student is complying within 10 seconds, then we make a yes mark. But if not, then it's time to repeat our direction
okay.
and observe again.
All right.
So,
Sounds good.
all right, well, thank you.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
How about, I don't know, breakout room number four? Uh, talk about Kelvin and your thoughts regarding that behavioral objective, um, the different criteria. Someone from group four feel bold and brave at this particular moment and share their group thoughts.
I could share. I don't know if I was in group four though. I don't
Well,
know what
thank you,
group
Madeline. You're
specific.
you're you're now the leader of group four, whether you were in it or not.
We were group
Yeah.
three, but it works.
Oh,
Oh,
okay. I did not know that, Miriam.
It's
I
all good.
forgot. I didn't look at the thing. Um, we said the actor was Kelvin. The behavior was stay engaged in the directed task. The condition was during independent work time, and then the degree was 70% of the time sampling observations that are average 4 minutes between each observation.
all right. Thank you, Madeline. And group number seven, breakout room number seven, or anybody who just is just feeling that urge to participate at the moment, jump in.
I think I was in group number seven.
All right, Annabelle. Yes.
So for the actor, we said Taz. For the behavior, we said respectful communication, but particularly like raising their hand before speaking, looking at the speaker and avoiding using curse words. Uh, the degree of success is 85%, and then the condition is during small group counseling.
All right, and thank you. Yes, you've nailed it. Certainly, you know, we're taking our best guess as to what we can accomplish, but we certainly are making it perhaps a little bit more difficult to accomplish by not just focusing on one behavior, but three that the student needs to display in order to get the credit. Now, certainly that's something we can accomplish if this student has been in a pull-out setting. He's getting tier two of PBIS interventions. We're pulled out for a small group that works on social skills and appropriate classroom behavior. And they have been working on these three, and they kind of go together. And we think that, yes, we can look at three behaviors versus one. So thank you all for participating, much appreciated. In your part two, you will be reading in the study modules, watching the videos. There are certain strategies that you must apply to your focus learner, hypothetically, or perhaps you actually decide to do it. We ask you, well, I guess we require of you that you show uh, how you would use task analysis, and we'll give you examples of that in just a second. Either task analysis or shaping. Uh, Plans. There are plans for changing a behavior. So they're not so much an intervention as plans for our interventions. And then you'll be studying that module on differential reinforcement. As we said last week, it's a $20 term for a $1 idea. That we will reinforce that student, we will reinforce the student, but differentially only gets reinforcement if certain criteria is met. Will not get reinforcement for showing some other behaviors. It's actually much simpler than it might seem by looking at the terminology. And there's different types of differential reinforcement. You'll select one of them that you would um, like to utilize in helping your student make better behavior choices. DRL, differential reinforcement of lower rates of behavior. I did this back in my classrooms when I was teaching adolescents with conduct disorders. There was a lot of cursing in their vocabulary and their utterances. And with Brian, for example, say, Brian, you curse an average of 17 times per class period. And if you curse 16 times or less, we'll give you a reward. We'll give you some points that you earn towards something. You're kidding me. I get to curse 16 times? Yes, because 16 is better than 17. And tell you what, we'll build in bonus points. You get it down to 13, we'll give you 2 points toward what it is you're trying to earn. Get it down to 9, give you 3 points. And so the kid right away would curse 9 times, but then he had to restrain himself for the rest of the period in order to get those 3 points. Now, this is probably not what you probably would not be able to use DRL for cursing in your inclusive classroom, but in my self-contained classroom, it was, I've got them all day and we're working on their behavior, and that was okay. You could do differential reinforcement of higher rates of behavior, that the student is raising the hand and waiting to be called on, and uh, if not called on, brings the hand down and mouth is shut. uh, does that 3 times during a class, the teacher instructional part of the activity, the lesson, and we want to boost it up to 4 or 5. We'll reward them for showing more of the behavior. And you'll study the other ones, promoting alternative behaviors, DRI, incompatible behaviors. We reward a behavior that can't happen at the same time as the problem behavior. So as we promote this new one, it blocks the other one from coming out. And DRO, whatever other behaviors you show, just don't show that one. 0 rates of the behavior during a certain time span. You'll read about self-monitoring and talk about how you would implement it with your student. That rather than us taking the data, why don't we have the student take the data? You know, that could really motivate a kid as they see how often this behavior pops up. and they try to reduce it. We're involving them in their own behavior change. We're working now on the internal management of the behavior versus our external management of the behavior. There are two types of assessment we'll be asking you to use in addition to your data recording for part two. And one is an ABC analysis. We'll get into that in just a second and how we intervene once we have information from our ABC analysis. But ABC analysis is one of the applied behavior analysis strategies. And applied behavior analysis is only interested in what you can observe. There's another analysis that tries to get inside the head and will present you with a Rosetta Stone, a code breaker for if the student shows this behavior, that means they're seeking attention. If the student's behavior pattern is this way, that means they're seeking power. And so we'll get into that and try to look a bit deeper down than just the observable and the measurable. And that's known as mistaken goals analysis, that the student is trying to achieve something, but doing so in a mistaken way, a way that is not as productive as it could be. And also in part two, you'll be offering suggestions to your focused learners, home-based adults. We want to get them on the same team. We want to be working in two different settings to help kids make better behavior choices. And those strategies, those suggestions for the home-based adults will come from, gosh, your own thinking, your own search, your own study, but we do want some of them to be from that self-help book that you're going to obtain for free or purchase if you think it would be helpful for that student. And also, there's a free parent video series that you have access to. The link is in the part two description on our Brightspace site, and it will provide you the link to that video series for parents and how they can use different strategies you're studying in the home. All right, task analysis. You are going to select either task analysis or shaping. Now, task analysis, uh, you may have used this if you have children or if you remember being a child, that, for example, your parents or your guardians are going to help you learn how to wash your clothes. And you break it down into steps. Okay, first of all, we need to get all of our dirty clothes and put them into this basket. Step one. Then we take that basket to the laundry room. Then we open up the door to the washer or the lid. We put our dirty clothes inside. And you move through the different steps for making the bed, or gosh, we follow recipes. Okay, task analysis. First do this, first do that, then do the next thing. All right. And so you have a task analysis here for entering into the classroom quietly and getting ready for class. That's what we tell them when we greet them at the door. Enter quietly and get ready for class. And one of our students is not getting ready for class in the way that the other kids are. Okay, perhaps we'll teach this. We'll make it a checklist. The student can check off each part as he or she or they is learning it. Now, a shaping plan is much more general. Okay, what do we think we can accomplish this week? Okay, what do we think we can accomplish next week? And it could be as simple as Let's see. Student arrives on time to the classroom, and this week will arrive on time 2 of the 5 days. Next week, 3 of the 5 days. Next week, 4 of the 5 days. Following week, all 5 of the 5 days. Gosh, that's a really general plan. Sometimes there's a bit more specificity, but yeah, and you see here, we're going to take the student not step by step, but different, gosh, behavioral goals almost for the following week or the following month, however long we think uh, we should have for our behavioral objectives. Ah, yes. Now into that ABC analysis, the assessment that you'll be doing. And all of this is in your study modules, and there's videos on these various things. Okay? But just kind of getting you in the ballpark, and as you study the materials, then you'll be finding your section in the ballpark and eventually the row and then the seat. And all of this will be very familiar to you. Right. So, yes, we had an ABCD for our behavioral objectives, and we're back at the beginning of the alphabet again, but this time for an assessment procedure where the A stands for the antecedent, okay? And then B for behavior, C for consequences. So how do we use this ABC analysis? Okay, we've identified the target behavior and we see it. There it is. Okay. Oh, what came just before it? What was the antecedent? Ante before, like antipasto before your meal. Okay. So there's the behavior. What came just before it and what came after it? Because the what happened before it was the spark that set off the behavior, and the C, the consequence, that's what's maintaining it. We show behaviors for a reason, and that consequence is why that behavior keeps happening. But wait a minute, why would the teacher chastising the student for the behavior be rewarding, reinforcing to that behavior? Well, if the student wants attention, hey, at, at least I got some attention. This teacher looked at me, spoke to me, even approached me, came closer. These are all things people do when they like each other. They give eye contact, they talk to each other, and they get closer. The trappings of belonging, but it's really not the eye contact the student wants, that teacher look. It's not really the voice tone and the words that the student would prefer to hear, but it's as close as this kid knows how to come to getting attention. Or it could be, yes, the chastisement is indeed punishing, and we would expect this behavior to die. So if this is a punisher, why doesn't that behavior die? Oh, because there's a lot of kids laughing at his behavior. And that laughing from the peers is, more powerful than the punishment that the teacher's administering. But there's a reason why people show behaviors. Either it brings something desirable to us or it makes something undesirable, negative, stay away. Or if that negative thing is happening to us, our behavior escapes it. Okay? That negative thing goes away. Negative reinforcement. All right, so this would be an example of an ABC analysis. Okay, the behavior happened on this date at that time. We have uh, used observable and measurable terms for our target behavior, so it's up there in the heading section. we can just maybe make a little anecdotal note or even a check mark that it happened, and then identify what followed the behavior. But gee, we'd like to actually add a couple more columns here. Okay, we've got our date and time. Let's put in some setting events. Setting events? Anybody have a good definition for what a setting event is? Yeah, I don't see it appearing in the chat, and we'll let you know that setting events make the antecedent, the spark, more likely to bring on the behavior. These setting events are things that reduce the kid's capacity to handle stress, tension, or requirements, makes it more likely that the antecedent, the stimulus that's closest to the behavior, makes that antecedent more powerful. So yeah, here's an example. The kid yells out, oh, I guess we'll go back to the setting events here. Our student, our focus learner, didn't have any breakfast in the morning because ran out to catch the bus, and then, was too late. The bus was pulling away, and the student had to walk to school and arrived at school wet. And the classmates laughed at her appearance when she entered. Eh, She'd already had a whole lot happen to her that particular morning, and yells that nasty epithet at somebody nearby who had laughed at her appearance, and kicks that student in the thigh, and then sits down in the desk in the back corner and starts to cry. Okay. So we've got our, whoops, we've got our antecedent. The students laughed at her appearance. She might have handled that better if those setting events hadn't happened. And so the kid just loses it, goes into the fight, flight, or freeze mode when you're just frustrated, overwhelmed emotionally. And this is a fighter, not a fleer. And but the parapro, who's got a nice relationships with the student, thank goodness that even when the student is operating in the lower emotional brain, the frontal lobe and the temporal lobes aren't really connecting right now, can't think things through. But just the presence of the parapro, because they've got a great relationship, she's comforted by that, knows that this person will take care of me. Right now, things are awful. I don't know what to do, but I trust this person to help me out in this crisis situation. Um, but as she was leaving, she's still a fighter, and she's still upset at what her classmates did to her. Yeah. And yes, yells something nasty. And then, well, what's the function? Well, we can't crack open the skull and look inside. We will have Dreiger's mistaken goals to help us a little bit as we get to that in just a touch. But we, as the ABAers, the people, the theoretical model, the people who adhere to that, say, hey, there's two reasons why people show behavior. Either they're trying to escape something awful or bring something desirable to them. And right now, I think this kid just is glad to be escaping the situation, the setting where a negative thing has occurred to her. And so, yes, we want you to put in the setting events and then the antecedent, the behavior, and the consequence. But gee, a situation doesn't stop when a consequence is administered. It can go on and go on. So, yeah, we'd like you to put in the student's response to the consequence that was received. But yes, we can have a series of ABCs as the situation escalates and each antecedent leads to a behavior. We got two people involved. That student's behavior, the B, is my antecedent to show a behavior, and my B is the consequence to that student's, is the C for the kid's B. It gets complicated. And yes, there are ways to keep track of these escalating situations, but wow, it can get complicated. So feel free to zone out for the next two slides. If you're interested in kind of getting an idea of what we're talking about, fine. But if not, it's not on the test. It's not on any assignments. But yeah, this is a series of ABCs. I mean, we've got an event happening in the classroom, and the teacher announces it's cleanup time, and the kid says no and throws a toy. The toy lands near the teacher, and she will respond. And you see, in step two, we're talking about the teacher now. The teacher's antecedent, her spark to do something, is the student throwing the toy and shouting no. So the kid's B, or behavior, is the teacher's antecedent to show her B, which is the student's consequence for the behavior that was shown, but also a new antecedent, something to which the student will show a new behavior. So just be aware there's this interplay of two people, A, B's, and C's being thrown back and forth. An example from preschool, now moving up to high school. And we're just taking one individual's side here, but each is influencing the other. Each will determine whether the conflict cycle, the escalating situation, gets worse or is diffused. An example of this might be a kid wads up a ball of his assignment, just a scrap sheet, into a ball, throws it at the basket, the trash basket, the pail, and misses. And the teacher says, "Pick it up." And the kid says, "I was going to do that. Just get up, put it in the basket." And the kid gets up, picks it off the floor, and then does this massive dunk into it. And the teacher says, "That's it, you're out of here." And the kid says, "I ain't going nowhere." And eventually the situation escalates and the kid gets suspended from school or gets detention, something along that line. And when you back up the bus, you say, what was the original offense? The kid tossed a ball of paper at the trash basket, and now he's suspended for 3 days. How did that situation get so bad? If anyone's involved in these escalating situations or witnessing them, ask me to send you the video on the conflict cycle, how we avoid getting in it and how we diffuse it. All right, time to wake up. The two slides are over, and let's continue on. So we've done the analysis, we've done the assessment. Now what? I mean, what do we do now that we know this information? Well, if we can prevent the setting events from ever happening, the kid will be better able to handle frustration and stress and challenges that seem difficult. Some schools are doing this with the um, offering free breakfast to kids and free lunches. I may have mentioned to this group, or maybe it was the 710 group last week, that the school in my district, uh, any kid, doesn't matter your income, your family's income level, because carrying that card and showing that card can be embarrassing for some kids. So the school says, look, we just offer free lunches to anyone who wants it and free breakfast to anyone who wants it. And, kids being able to eat, especially when there's food insecurity. And for some families, at least this month, as the government SNAP checks will not be coming in. 1 in 8 Americans who relies on this supplemental aid to buy their food will not be receiving all of it this week. Hunter has a food pantry. If any of you or someone you know who's a Hunter student is has food insecurity, the pantry is located down in the basement entry from the subway. It's right near there, and no questions asked. You need food, we've got food for you. All right. And where we can prevent that spark, the antecedent, from happening. So yeah, when we separate students, we're trying to prevent that antecedent, pairing these two close together, from resulting in conversations and joking and off-task behavior. Uh, One parapro hasn't established a trusting relationship yet with a student, and when approaches that particular student, the kid says, "Get out of here, go away." Well, then maybe we have the other parapro work with this student while also working with the parapro to develop a better relationship with the student who is saying, "Go away." And we can also prevent that usual C, that consequence that's maintaining the behavior. We can also try to build a replacement behavior. So we can substitute in at the A, at the C, or the B. All right.
May I ask
Yeah.
a question?
Please do, Sarah.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm always asking questions. I right now have a student who's not got a great relationship with a very new paraprofessional. Do you have any articles or any suggestions for places because
You
to
know,
help that relationship?
well, yes, I believe in one of our modules, we focus a lot on relationships for part 2. Additionally, the University of Nebraska at Lincoln used to have a paraprofessional training program, and they decided that they were just going to do away with it. And I said, hey, can I have it? And so I have an online modules that the parapro can take to become a better parapro. And then there's the teacher version, working better with your parapro. So yeah, do send me this request, and I've got some materials that I can forward to you.
Okay, thank you.
All righty. And yes, we need to be sure that if we're promoting a replacement behavior, that it meets the same function, the same purpose, the same reason for the problem behavior popping up. Because, gosh, why would a student change out their behavior if it didn't meet the same need and to the same degree? Hmm. So, what are some needs that students have? They might show behaviors for different reasons. Yes, indeed. Sensory needs. that some of our students have a need for sensory stimulation. One of the thoughts regarding attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, and there are three different types: primarily distractible, primarily overactive, and the combo type combination. But we think that sensory information is not reaching the brain as well as for other kids. And this movement and this distractibility is a way of getting more information into the brain. Just one thought on it. Certainly, medical needs. I'm guessing that we're talking about um, the need for prescriptions, and if the medication is not available, is wearing off, or there's the titration process happening. The physician has prescribed some medication for our student, but they're trying to adjust the dosage, get the maximum effect with the fewest side effects: drowsiness, irritation, constipation, any of those side effects. Yes, and we all want to belong. We want to be accepted by valued other people. And so, gosh, think of some of the things that you did back when you were in middle and high school to belong. You listened to that music, or you dressed in that way, or you put on that hairstyle that you wouldn't be caught in nowadays, but you wanted to belong. And if you did want to continue it, but gosh, the workplace just wouldn't allow you to dress like that, or have your hairstyle like that, or behave in that manner, gosh, you're doing it for, I guess, social acceptance, workplace acceptance. Mhm. So yeah, it's too hot in here. I can't think, or it's too cold in here. Gosh, that's sensory that input or lack of input that can affect the behavior. Yeah, safety. We need to provide not just physical safety in the classroom, the kids won't be physically harmed, but also emotional safety, that the other kids won't be making fun of some bodily feature or facial feature, that that we won't be the object of ridicule. And we need intellectual safety, that we can offer up an answer and it's not correct. We don't have to worry about somebody saying, boy, that's dumb. Yeah, we need intellectual safety too. Yes, we all need to feel as if we're achieving in life, that we're learning new stuff. And when other people are learning we're told is important, and we're struggling, gosh, that can be demoralizing and result in, I ain't doing this baby stuff, and throwing it on the floor, even though it's not baby stuff. The student said, oh no, something else I can't do. And I got two choices. I could try to work on it and appear dumb, or I could rip it up and appear bad. And bad trumps dumb every time as the image that one would want to present to others. Mhm. And yes, that wanting to belong, be accepted by others. All right, there are two forms that must be included in your Part 2 paper. The link to them is on our Brightspace site inside the document, that description of the CAB-MR Part 2. This is the blank form, and you will identify a number of times when you saw the student engaging. Oh, this is the got it. This is not the ABC analysis. This is what we do about it. And so you're thinking, okay, well, what are some setting event interventions I can use so that the kid doesn't have the emotional energy and constraint drain from him, her, or them. And that way, okay, and so what can we do to lessen the setting events? What can we do to keep that antecedent, that spark from ever happening? What can we do to change the behavior? What are our instructional strategies? And gee, how can we prevent the present payoff from happening so that the problem behavior doesn't get reinforced, doesn't get rewarded? And yes, the next slide has the completed versions. Good golly, we've got 5 different setting event strategies, making sure that the independent work is on Mark's academic ability level. Got some antecedent strategies, and you'll find these completed forms in the exemplars, the papers that we want to emulate with regard to the the high level of achievement on various aspects of part 2. And so you'll be able to spot these. Uh, you can come to this PowerPoint presentation, or it'll be on the recording that's going to be uploaded, and you can get back to this part and see how it's done, how we fill out that form. And then we've got another plan, how we're going to insert a new behavior in the place of the problem behavior. So we're saying, okay, how are we going to set this kid up for success? How can we have setting events that enhance the chances of the student being resistant to that spark that set off the problem behavior? But you know, if that trigger does present itself, that antecedent does occur, we don't want it to lead to the problem behavior. We want it to lead to a replacement behavior. And then we're going to reinforce that replacement behavior, more reinforcement than the kid was getting with the problem behavior. And we got to be sure that, again, our replacement behavior serves the same function, meets the same need for sensory input, for attention, for connection with others. And here's an example of a completed replacement plan. So we want to work on when the antecedent presents itself, the student says, whoa, this is too hard for me, and just leave in the instructional area. Say, no, we're going to work on a replacement behavior. We talk with the student about this, or we figure out how we're going to engage in this behavior change plan. But typically we sit down, we explain it to the student, what's going to happen. And the student initially will probably make mistakes and go through to the problem behavior. But with our secret signals, tugging on the earlobe or rubbing the nose, the student says, oh, and then quickly switches to the replacement behavior. We catch the kid being good, some positive recognition, and we just, again, have to be sure that we are helping the student uh, achieve the same function, the same reason, the same benefit. Hang in there. We're getting near the end. We've probably got maybe another 5 to 10 minutes together. Yes, applied behavior analysis, that theoretical orientation says, hey, only focus on what you can observe because we can't say for certain what's driving that behavior. And other theoretical models say, no, that's just way too superficial. There are ways of determining what's going on. Yep, sometimes we're wrong, but to ignore them and pretend that they don't exist, well, one of the pioneers in classroom management, Rudolf Dreikers, uh, he says, I agree that we have to look at the observable, but the observable can help us figure out what's going on at a deeper level. He came up with this system and calls it the mistaken goals. But essentially, the main point of his assessment, the mistaken goals assessment, he's saying, we humans, our greatest human psychological need is to belong, to be connected with others, to feel we have a group that values us and we can take on responsibilities within that group and become a more influential member of that group over time, but to be with people we trust. For many of us, it's our family. They'll say, you know, you're you're wrong. You're very wrong, but we still love you and we'll talk with you. You are one of us. Others of us have a friendship group that, yes, we can get in arguments. We can want to do different things. But when it comes down to it, we're a team. We're inseparable. I am here for you when you need me. I suspect that during your um, educational foundations class or your child psych class, but somewhere along the way, you learned about Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And yes, he never presented it in a pyramid form, but you'll almost always see it that way in textbooks and articles. And also his original interpretation. Well, let's go to the pyramid. That at the most basic of our needs are our survival needs. We need a certain temperature. So that means we need clothing, if it gets cold. We need to eat. We need hydration. And if there's food insecurity, or I was reading that in one country on the other side of the world, they've just run out of water. The taps have gone dry in their capital city. And people now have hydration issues along with other war-torn places and that sort of thing. So yes, we need to meet our physiological needs. Those take priority. And sometimes we have to engage in dangerous ways to obtain it. But if we can meet those psychological needs, then we work on our safety needs, being safe from any form of attack, and also uh, being not being emotionally attacked. And if we can meet those two bottom needs, then our next most important thing is a sense of belonging, that greatest of the human psychological needs. And if we've met these bottom three up to the green there um, adequately, then we can start to work on our self-esteem, our self-worth. We can feel better about ourselves and strive to become that person that we can be when everything fits into place. In some textbooks, you'll read that you gotta meet your psychological or physiological needs before you meet your safety needs. And no, Maslow, when he originally, if you go back to his original documents and writings, he saw it more like a ladder where you could be working on many different levels at once. That you could be trying to obtain the food and perhaps find a safer neighborhood in which to live, but you still want your people near you. And so, yes, you can work on many different levels at once, but we have needs. And some kids, their families are still working on the bottom levels, and that can affect their self-esteem. But as we meet those bottom needs, the student feels better about him, her, themselves, and the world in general, and can achieve. So anyhow, it is the belonging level that Dreikers was concerned about in his mistaken goals, and saying that if a kid doesn't feel valued in a setting, doesn't feel connected to others in a setting, they're going to try to gain that connection. And they do it initially by seeking attention. But if we crush that attention seeking with our classroom penalties, then the student moves into power seeking. I ain't doing this crap. Okay. The teacher pays attention to that power seeking. So the kid is still trying to gain attention and really lures us in to that. But we recognize that, we have penalties that can crush that power seeking behavior. Well, that's then the students move into revenge. They're going to get back at you for not accepting them, helping them connect with others, helping them feel valued within your classroom. And this could be anything from destroying bulletin boards to writing graffiti to spreading rumors about the teacher, lying to the parents about the things that the teacher did. But hey, we crush that behavior. And then the kids just say, I'm giving up. I give up on this place. They may skip school, mm, or cut your class, or just leave me alone. I ain't doing it. And he has a way of determining what stages the kids are in and how to go about addressing things so that that student does feel connected with your classroom, class 222, and all the kids in it and the adults, and says, I like coming to this place and I'm going to put forth my best effort. And so you'll study that in the learning module. And one of the last parts of I think is just about the last part of part two, last segment of it, is providing some suggestions for the adults back in the dwelling. These are some of the self-help books available to you. I'm not certain whether each and every one is offered on that website where you can obtain it for free for, I think, about a month or two. So, yes, when you're finally ready, sign up for it, but you only have limited access to it. And then we have the video series that has the link in the description for part two, and you'll watch those video chapters. But you'll be choosing the self-help booklet that best uh, fits your particular student. Just one last look at all the different parts. You'll see this again on the description for part two, all the different segments, sections of your part two paper. And yes, indeed, it's an orderous task. Everything involved in this course is difficult, but you got this. We're done. Have a wonderful rest of the evening. If you want to stick around and talk for a little bit, I'll be here.
Thank you. Good
Thanks
night.
for coming.
Thank